Moore. Where do I put the gear? I think that was 40 years ago. Of course, his band was called Abernathy Shagmaster. Who would have thought, with a band called Abernathy Shagmaster, that this guy would go on to become the head of one of the biggest rock bands in Canada, #1, and then go on to become a successful entrepreneur, business leader in the city of Mississauga. So it's my pleasure to bring to the stage my old buddy, Gil Moore.
Glad to do that to me, didn't you? Hi, everybody. It's great to be here, and it's an honor to abduct my friend PhilX. I don't know where I'm going to take him. But anyway, once you're indicted, Phil, we're going to have a great night at Rockville. Seriously, folks, Phil's one of my favorite people on the planet Earth, never mind a great guitar player. Before we get started, Mrs. Exonides, please stand up. Great mom, and there's a 5-star mother right there. When Phil entered Triumph, you know, it was a tough period for us because we'd had a falling out with Rick. Fortunately, that's all put back together. We're brothers in arms again, and Phil walked into a tough situation where we were, you know, at a transition point, I'll say. Phil, is that the best way to put it? And he brought his energy, you know, to the party that was incredible, with his buddy Mladen sitting right there, part of the team. We had a phenomenal experience together. We formed a new band, and it was, you know, it was a different Triumph, but it was our Triumph. We loved it. We made a record together, and never forget that part of Triumph's career, Phil, and it was an honor to play with you, and it really is an honor to be here today. Now I'm going to let you hear John Stewart's words here. He's written a very nice speech. John, where are you? There we go. Okay. On April 14th, 2011, PhilX received a call from an unknown New York number. Hi, Phil, this is John Bon Jovi. Give me a call. What began was a slow integration process that 5 years later saw Phil officially succeed Richie Sambora in a band he grew up listening to, a band that wrote and recorded songs of his youth, Bon Jovi. Phil grew up in a household filled with music, mostly Greek music. After being given his first guitar, a copy of a Vox hollow-body teardrop model, which he could barely hold at age 5, he watched and learned as his musician father, Peter, played bouzouki and sang. At 17, he was bartending at his dad's tavern, The Magnet, in Mississauga. When Dad went on vacation, Phil booked his own band to play on the small stage in the corner, and he started honing in on his performance skills. Years later, the first time he was given the opportunity to fill a legendary guitar player's shoes was in Mississauga's own Triumph. And in 1997, pardon me, Phil moved to Los Angeles and embarked on a journey of life and career trials and tribulations. And as long as he was making music, he always saw a light at the end of the tunnel. What marks Phil's work is total commitment. Whether squeezing the last ounce of energy and sound from his instrument, pushing for that note out of his voice, or searching for the exact pace and tone that best suits the material. Phil's a generous teacher, as a series of legendary YouTube videos can attest. And if imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, he should be flattered at the seemingly endless supplies of copycat efforts. He's also generous with his time, whether on GTA school visits or guesting at clinics and podcasts, as you've done at our school at Metalworks, Phil. Thank you for that. When a 25-year-old Mississauga woman died suddenly of congenital heart failure and a beloved guitar and hobby musician had designed was donated to a local guitar shop, Phil decided to play it in a concert with Bon Jovi at Air Canada Centre to honor her memory and her flair. That brought immeasurable comfort to her grieving family. PhilX, in his irrepressible style, epitomized the infectious energy that's at the heart of the music he plays. He says he still gets goosebumps when he kicks in with the talk box on Living on a Prayer. Me too, Phil. More so with you playing it. Which may explain why so many of the rest of us have that same reaction. He's never lost the joy of performing that has thrilled generations since he was a small boy, and he's able to convey that same sense of joy to his audience every time he picks up a guitar and sings. For an exemplary career that's taken him from covering Elvis to electrifying Bon Jovi, let's welcome PhilX to Mississauga's Music Walk of Fame.
And the speakers, that was amazing. Wow, this is amazing. I hate speeches. I don't know if I need my glasses yet. Do I need my glasses? 53-year-old eyes. Thanks, Cliff. Cliff hit me about this a couple of years ago, but we just couldn't get it together, and then Gil called and said they want me to induct you. And that was great. Gilmore, one of my favorite people on the planet, too. So thanks, everybody, for coming. I'm just gonna dig right in. So many faces I haven't seen in a long time. When I was 8, I had an Elvis Presley set. I'm gonna take yours off. It's more intimate. My Elvis Presley set was 2 songs. I could play and sing Blue Suede Shoes and Teddy Bear. My father, PhilX Induction, had a lot to do with me wanting to play guitar, so he really encouraged me. And one time, we were at a wedding, and yeah, 400 people, a big, fat Greek wedding. And, my dad, he was like, hey, the band's taking a break, why don't you get up and play? And I didn't think that was like, when you can do that? But there's so many people. And he was, his whole thing was, buddy, you can do it, just go do it. So I got up and played and sang my heart out. And this is like way before YouTube, where you could see thousands of 8-year-olds get up on a stage and play guitar and sing Elvis Presley songs. So everybody was going nuts. And that's when I thought, like, man, this is it. So when I was 11, I bought my first second-hand Fender Stratocaster for $350. My dad and I went halvesies with the money I earned washing dishes at the restaurant. My dad matched my 175 and drove me to this weird guy's apartment where I opened the case and I couldn't believe that Strat could be mine. I still feel it right now. In 1980, I was going to concerts. Van Halen, Cheap Trick, Black Sabbath, Alice Cooper. As a young musician, of course, you want to achieve that level of success. And it was 1988 when I saw Bon Jovi on the New Jersey tour at CNE Grandstand in Toronto, a venue that doesn't even exist anymore. And I was completely amazed. And no, I never imagined that I'd be in a band like that. It seemed completely unattainable, but I knew if I worked hard, I could get close. I think it worked out. My mom, Jenny, I don't want this to be forever. My mom, Jenny, and my sisters, Yvonne and Helena, they were so supportive. And along with all my friends while I was growing up, they would all remind me how amazing I was. My brother, Jimmy, practiced a different approach, or should I say, strategy. He'd always say, that was okay. Or, you could have done better. So I feel like that pushed me. And I developed this "screw you, Jimmy" attitude. And I'm very thankful for that. It's amazing to have that kind of support from a family. So I grew up listening to everything from Zeppelin to Judas Priest, but I always loved the great pop songs I heard on my sister's AM radio, from Guess Who to Casey and the Sunshine Band. I'm going way back, man. Remember Sweeney Todd? Anybody? Okay, that was on the radio. Guitar-wise, my inspiration came from Eddie Van Halen, Tony Iommi, Yuli John Roth, and so many more, even a bouzouki player named Manoli Sotis. Even though for a brief time I wanted to be Eddie Van Halen, I realized, even at a young age, that being a copycat wasn't the path to take. So I aspired towards a status in my own style and to develop my own individuality as a player. Thank you, good night! Okay, there's way too many stories and way too many people. I'm gonna list, my history in this great city of Mississauga and the schools. When we moved here, I went to Springfield Elementary, Woodland School, a brief semester in summer school at Arundel Secondary, Clarkson Secondary. I remember the classes, the friends, the girlfriends, talent shows, battle of the bands at every school. I even judged the battle of the bands at Sheridan College later on. And I remember Music City, Musician Supply. I keep running into Wally from Music City at the NAMM show every January in Anaheim, and Kevin Lamb too, from Musician Supply. It's funny how when you're a young guitar player in a music store, it's like Disneyland. You have the hopes and the dreams and saving money to buy that guitar. It's the history here is incredible. I played in a cover band with my best buddy, Scott Masterson, Kevin Gingrich. The band was called Citynex, which is my last name backwards, which I don't know how I came up with that. Kind of sounds like something you put up your nose when you have a cold. We'd play any dive that would let us play. And we opened for Sanders. Remember Sanders? Yes. We opened for Sanders, Nazareth, Pat Travers, Foghat, Lee Aaron. And the list goes on. Of course, we threw in originals and eventually recorded a record with Todd Farhood on vocals with the money we pulled together from our parents, grandparents, and part-time jobs. Okay, back to me. There's a thing that happens when you're good. There's a better thing that happens when you're excellent. But the thing that happens when you're excellent, cool, fun to be around, and work your ass off is unbeatably awesome. That's when a sound guy named Mark Chappell, mixing a young unknown band in a crappy club, notices a really talented guitar player. Because Mark Chappell gets a better gig. Now he's doing monitors for Frozen Ghost, who is number 5 on the charts, and on a huge US tour supporting Howard Jones. Because Mark Chappell befriends Frozen Ghost singer-songwriter producer Arnold Lanny, and during the moment of opportunity tells Arn, "You gotta check out this young guitar player. He's at the Gasworks next week. You gotta go." So Arn shows up, I show up. I pull out all the stops and play like I'm insane. Arn leaves, I leave, but I'm still on stage playing, but through my head I'm like, what did I do wrong? So the next day the phone rings and it's Arnold, and he asks me to come to the studio on Friday to do some recording. So I'm gonna do this really quickly. Frozen Ghost, 2 records and multiple tours. Aldo Nova, 1 tour. Triumph, 1 record and 11 shows. 11! That's not a tour. We should do more shows. All because one guy called another guy who called another guy and said, "You gotta check out this guitar player." And even back then it was like, what's his name? PhilX. Wait, that's his name? PhilX? Even when I moved to LA, people would call me and say, "Is that real? Is that your name?" I don't know why it doesn't sound unbelievable. I think my attitude hasn't changed since I was 16, whether it's 100,000 people at Rock in Rio with Bon Jovi or 30 people at a dive in San Diego with my band, The Drills. It's always give it all you've got. In 1997, my ex-wife and I, Ninette Terhart, my ex-wife, Ninette Terhart, and I felt like we had exhausted everything that we could do in Canada musically, so we moved to LA. It wasn't easy. You think you saved enough money to live for a while, to just write songs, put a band together, and start gigging, but you didn't. You think because your band, Powder, is the talk of the town, your entertainment lawyer is a... What is he? Entertainment lawyer is a cool, connected dude, and yeah, he's bringing 4 labels to see you at the whiskey. This is it. We're on our way. But it's not. And there's always a reason why you're not. They said we were too weird, and they said we were too old. But, we didn't quit. I didn't quit. I think it's important to, if you're going to focus and stay on the path, that's when great things happen. Photograph,
Improvise.
Space retriever.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, in 1999, while I was working odd jobs, and I mean odd jobs, I was painting producer Scott Humphrey's garage, another Canadian. He was producing Tommy Lee's Methods of Mayhem, and they needed a guitar player, so I put down the paintbrush and picked up the Les Paul, and bam, the snowball started to roll. Rob Zombie came by and dug what I was doing, so he asked me to play on his new record, Sinister Urge. Then Rob was playing golf with Alice Cooper and said, "You got to check out this guitar player." So now the kid that went to Alice Cooper concerts at Maple Leaf Gardens is all grown up and recording on an Alice Cooper record. It kept rolling. Daughtry, Kelly Clarkson, Avril Lavigne, Chris Cornell, Gavin DeGraw, Hailstorm, to mention 6. It's pretty amazing when all the stories started rolling around that, who should we get to play guitar, and the answer was PhilX. And I was getting calls, and I just felt fortunate that I could pay my bills playing guitar. So, there's so many things I could say, and I'm just going to bring it down to 2 things for all the aspiring young musicians. Yes, it's important to put thousands of hours into honing your craft. Yes, it's important to develop your ear, especially if you don't read, like I did. But even more important, deliver. Own every note, every phrase, every outfit. If I would have put down that paintbrush and picked up that guitar and was just okay, if I would have walked into Alice Cooper session and was just mediocre, if I would have walked onto that Bon Jovi stage for the first time in 2011 and crumbled under the pressure of filling in for the OG guy in front of 50,000 fans, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be there. Number 2, don't be a dick. I'm going to mention some names. Like I said, I hate speeches, but I have to mention, I mentioned some names and I have to keep going. I have so many people that touched my life, inspired me, became a friend of incredible proportions. I want to start with my amazing wife, Lindy, and my incredible children, Xavier, Scarlett, and Gage. And my bass player and left wing for life, Daniel Spreewell. And there's blues down the street, man. My uncles, aunts, and cousins from the Xenides, Vasilakos, Strategias, Ceres, Amaduros, and Androtacos families, that's like 500 people. Papanelli, Robbie DeRusso, Mark Carpani, Lou Rapoli, George Nicholas K, Wolf Hassel, John Bavette, Mike Saracini, Rob Lanny, Eric Lawrence, Kojo Ferguson, Karim Musa, Jim Torres, Randy Coven, Howie Bertolo, Tim Harrington, Tony and Matt Bon Jovi, Gil Moore, Mike Levine, and everyone at the Metalworks. Best studio in Canada. Still. Kim Mitchell, Alex A, because I can't say his last name, Mike Dummer, Dale Harrison, Randy Cook, Jason Hook, Jeremy Spencer, Frank Greiner, Rain Maida, and Chantal Kravusiak, I said that wrong. Iskey, Scott Robinson, Obie O'Brien, Clint Moore, Dustin Jack, Phil Snook Hatton, Rocky Nash, Smiley Sean, Stuart Copeland, John Shanks, John Glenecki, Ross Hogarth, Tommy Lee, Chris Cheney, Abe Laborio Jr., Kenny Aronoff, Brian Burwell, Josh Fries, Glenn Sobel, Matt Chamberlain, Brent Fitz, Gary Novak, Brian Tishy, Mike Dupke, everyone at Groove Addicts that became Grooveworks, Rob Navarro, Paul Bushnell, Paul DeCarli. That sounds like one big long name, doesn't it? Mike Pelletier, Mike Plotnikoff, Howard Benson, Chris Lord Algie, Hatch, Rob Redberg, Teddy Shapiro, Matt Zerletic, Steve Churchyard, Bob Marlette, Andrew and Liz Bojanic. Has this ever been done before? Edgar Struble, Anthony Piedmont, Takumi, Fred at Americana, Bobby Bandera, Mark Van Gool, Matt Nelson, Stevie Salas, Fran Stein, and the Higher Gun cast and crew, Tori Catalano, John Lou Lusteau, Tiny Busso, IMC Camp Rock, Urban Centra, everyone at Framus Guitars, Freeman Amplifiers, Robin, Arcane Pickups, Clear Tone Strings, Everly Picks. I'm gonna keep going up. Supro, Carlo Delay, George Trippett, Wayhue, Jay Rocket, Jim Dunlop, Nick Greer, Exotic, Walrus, and Tide, U Audio, and TC Electronics. I have to thank Stefania Celli and the entire PhilX fan club, who's, holy shit, they're amazing. The best. And of course, the whole Bon Jovi band who put me on the big stage, and the Jovi crew who made it easy to do my job. I know, I forgot a lot of peeps, for sure. I truly apologize and thank you. I thank the city of Mississauga and everyone here today. Gilmore, woohoo! Yeah. Thank you.
He forgot Aladdin.
It is our honor and our privilege
Right there.
to present and induct Phil Zanides, PhilX, to the Mississauga Music Walk of Fame.
Hey. Well, it was going good, but all these tall people pissed me off. Oh, come on, don't stand.